All right, this is going to be Notes Intro to Functions. Um, you are going to have to draw that. Like I gave this worksheet to students in class, but unfortunately you're going to have to draw it to make it a little bit faster so that way you can get this. So go ahead and take a minute, go ahead and press pause on the video, you're going to copy this down. This is a lot of notes, guys. We're actually going to be doing 2 pages worth. I'm going to try to do my best to go fast through this, just because again, I know the videos do get long. So go ahead and press pause on the video. I'm just going to assume you did that and get started. So first thing we're going to focus on is this word domain. The domain of a relation is the set of all the first coordinates. Usually, these are going to be your x values, or sometimes teachers will call them the input values, okay? So the first part of the coordinate is going to be your domain. The second part of your coordinate is going to be your range. The range of a relation is a set of all of the second coordinates. Usually, these are going to be your y values. Sometimes your teachers will also call them your output values, all right? All right, so now you know the domain is the first part of your coordinates and the range is going to be your second part of your coordinate. Here, they give us a map. And on the map, they have this first part of the coordinates and then they show you where it's going to the second part of the coordinate. So let me explain to you what this really looks like. So for example, if my first part of the coordinate is 1, then where it's going to go to is the letter B. So I can say that my coordinate, it be 1 goes to B. All right, let's see the next one, because there's another one. I see another one right there. The next coordinate is this 2. And when I press the 2, what I end up with is a C. So I know that the first part of the coordinate is 2. The second part of the coordinate is C. If I go a little bit faster, let's see. The next coordinate, it starts at 3, and that 3 goes to D. And then the last coordinate I have is this number 4, and the first part of the coordinate is 4. It also goes to B. And that is the set of all my coordinates. Because I'm going to write it as a set, it's going to look really weird, but you're going to get used to it. I'm going to write this with little squiggly brackets, just saying like, hey, these are all the coordinates that I have in this set. That's why I had those squiggly brackets there. It's the same ones that you see over here on this right-hand side, okay? All right, let's talk about the domain. Remember that the domain are the first parts of your coordinates. The first part of my coordinate was this 1, the 2, the 3, and the 4. I want you to notice that it's also the first numbers that you see here, the 1, 2, 3, and 4. So what's my domain? It's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And because it's a set of numbers, I'm going to go ahead and write it in the squiggly brackets. The range is the second set of numbers in your coordinates. That would be B, C, D, and B again. Notice that they're the exact same ones as the ones over here in your second set. So you don't need to write the B again because you already said it. So I'm going to write B, C, D. Again, technically it's B again. But B is part of B is already part of my set, so I don't need to write it down twice. This is my range, B, C, and D. All right, let's see if I can go a little bit faster on this second one. Here are my inputs. This is the first part of my coordinates. Here are my outputs. These are the second part of my coordinates. Let's see where these coordinates go. Actually, when I press the number 2, I get a 20. But also, when I get a number 2, it also maps to 40. What else happens? Well, when I get a 4, it maps to 40 as well. And finally, when I get a 3, it maps to 30. So those are all my coordinates, my x comma y's. And remember, it's a set, so I'm going to start with the squiggly bracket, end with the squiggly bracket. What is my domain? Well, my domain are all my first values. Remember, it's 2, 2, 4, and 3. I don't need to write the 2 and 2 twice. So it's just 2 and 4 and 3, or you can just get these numbers from right here. That works too. 2, 4, and 3. And my range are my second set of values, which in this case is going to be 20, 30, and 40. And remember, this is the set of numbers, so we're going to go ahead and put these in brackets. All right, I think we're okay with this. Now check out this next one. This next one did not give me what we call a map, right? Yep, that's what we call it. They didn't give me a map, but they did give me the coordinates. And since they have the coordinates, I should be able to draw the map myself. So let me go ahead and start by drawing a circle like this. And it looks like my first coordinates are Mark, Chris, Liz, and Kim. So let me go ahead and write those. Mark, Chris, Liz, and Kim. By the way, these are all names. And what do they map to? Well, they map to orange, red, red again, and blue. But remember, since I said the color red twice, I don't need to write it twice. So this is going to be orange, red, and blue. The map is, by the way, these are colors. The map is almost done, but I just need to write my arrows. So let's see. Mark went to orange. Chris went to red. Liz also went to red. So I'm going to put 2 arrows going to red like this. And then Kim went to blue. All right, as far as my domain, I think you're pretty good at this now. My domain is my first set of words, which in this case are all the names. My domain would be Mark, Chris, Liz, and Kim. My range is the second set, which in this case is going to be orange, red, and blue. All right, that takes care of the first example. Let's go ahead and define what a function is. It says a function is a relation that assigns each value in the domain exactly one value in the range. Now, that's all well and good. That's the technical definition. Basically, every single thing in your domain needs to map to only one thing in your range. But it is really hard for students to think of it that way. So I like to tell students, I want you to think of it as a vending machine. And when you press this button on the vending machine, if you know what's going to happen when you press the button, then the vending machine is working. Okay? So here's my thing. So let's take a look at example number 1. Here's example number 1 right here. These are all the buttons, and these are all the things that are going to pop out. So let's go button by button, and let's see if you can tell me exactly what's going to happen when I press the button. When I press the button labeled number 1, do you know what's going to pop out? I sure do. Every single time I press this number 1, what's going to pop out is the letter B. And so far, because I know what's going to happen, this vending machine is working. Okay? Let's see what happens when I press the button number 2. When I press button number 2, do I know what's going to happen? Absolutely. When I press button number 2, I know out is going to pop a letter C. I know that's what's going to happen. Do I know what's going to happen when I press button number 3? The answer is yes. You know you're going to get D. Let's do the last one because I think this is the one that tricks students. But again, just listen to the question. Hey, if I press the number 4, do you know what's going to happen? If you said that B was going to pop out, then you are correct, which means you knew what was going to happen. So my machine is working. I don't care that when I press 1, I get B, and that when I press 4, I also get B. What's important is I know what's going to happen when I press those buttons. So because it worked all the way through, for number 1, I'm going to say, yes, this is a function. Because my machine worked, but we're not going to be able to write that. Yes, it is a function because to do the mathematical terminology, you're going to say every input maps to exactly one output. Every time you press the button, you know exactly where it was going to go. Okay? All right, let's take a look at example number 2. Let's take a look at example number 2. Hey, When I press this button right here, number 2, do you know what's going to happen? Well, some of you guys are going to say, when you press 2, you go to 20. And some of you guys are going to say, wait. When you press the number 2, you're going to go to 40. So let me ask you this. If I press the number 2, do you know what I'm going to get? I don't. It's either going to be a 20 or it's going to be a 40, but I don't know which one it's going to be for sure. So I have this input when I press the button. It has 2 different outputs. That's not okay, all right? So we're going to say number 2. It is not a function. We're going to say no because the input of 2, when I press the number 2, I got 2 different outputs. So that is not okay. The input of 2 resulted in 2 outputs. Which is basically saying like you don't know what you're going to get when you press that number 2. So number 2 is not a function. Okay, let's take a look at the third one. On the third one, do you know what's going to happen when I press mark? I'm definitely going to get orange. Do you know what's going to happen when I press Chris? I'm definitely going to get red. Do you know what's going to happen when I press Liz? I am also going to get red. And that is okay, because I know if I press Liz, out pops red. And then, do you know what's going to happen when you press Kim? Absolutely, it's going to be blue. So, is this a function? The answer is yes. And when it is a function, what you're going to say is yes, because every input maps to exactly one output. All right, that takes care of the front page. Let's go ahead and go to the back side. Same thing. If you did not get the papers from me, you're just going to go ahead and just copy that down. Press pause on the video. I'm going to go ahead and assume you already did this. I'm going to speed run this a little bit, guys, because again, I know these videos can be long and I don't want them to be super long. So let's go ahead and draw this map. I'm going to go ahead and draw a circle here, draw a circle here. Let's see, as far as my inputs, I have the number 4, 6, 0, and I have the 4 again. I'm not going to write it twice. 4, 6, and 0. As far as the outputs, I got -5, 0. I got -5 again, and I got 0 again. So really, the only outputs I have is -5 and 0. All right, what maps to what? It looks like the 4 goes to -5, so I'm going to draw an arrow going from 4 to -5. It looks like the 6 maps to 0, so I'm going to draw an arrow going from 6 to 0. It looks like 0 maps to -5, so I'm going to draw an arrow going from 0 to -5. And it looks like 4 maps to 0, so I'm going to go ahead and draw a map going from 4 to 0. All right, what's my domain? My domain are the numbers in the front. That's going to be 4, 6, and 0. What's my range? My range is going to be the numbers, the second set of numbers, so it's going to be -5 and 0. And we're pretty much done. Hey, sometimes they'll give it to you in a table. It's the exact same thing. That just says 4 maps to 1, 3 goes to 5, 5 goes to 0, 1 goes to 0. So as far as the coordinates are concerned, the first coordinate is 4, 1, 3, 5, 5, 0, and 1, 0. Those are my coordinates. What's my domain? It's still the first set of numbers, which in this case is going to be 4, 3, 5, and 1. What's going to be my range? Well, it's going to be my second set of numbers, but I don't need to write the 0 twice, so I'm just going to write 1, 5, and 0. All right, and this last one, again, they did not give me the map, but I can go ahead and draw the map. I got 2 sets of numbers. the first set has the numbers 4, 7, and 12. The second set has the numbers 5, 5, and 5, but it's just 5, so I'm just going to write 5. And as far as mapping, I know that 4 goes to 5, 7 goes to 5, and 12 goes to 5. They all go to 5. What's my domain? My domain is the first set of numbers, so this is going to be 4, 7, and 12. My range is going to be the second set of numbers. Well, that's just the number 5. And we are done with this part of the problem. Guys, I kind of messed up here, so let me go ahead and scratch these out. And let me write that this is number 4. This is number 5. I don't know why it got all weird like that. And this is number 6. All right, let's check. Just like last time. Check number 4. Is it a function? Well, let's see. Do you know what happens when you press the number 4? The answer is no, because it goes to -5 and it also goes to 0. So I don't know which one I'm going to get. So already I know that this is not a function, so I'm going to say no. Because the input of, what was it, 4 maps to 2 outputs. That cannot happen. Let's take a look at example number 5. Is this a function? Well, let's see. If I press 4, I know I get 1. If I press 3, I know I get 5. If I press 5, I know I get 0. If I press 1, I know I get 0. That's okay. Like, it doesn't matter that they're both 0, because I know every time I press 1, what's going to happen? I'm going to get 0. So that's fine. I know exactly what's happening. So we're going to say this is a function. Yes, because every input maps to exactly one output. And finally, we're down to our last one. Do you know what happens when I press the number 4? Yep, I get 5. Do you know what happens when I press the number 7? Yep, I get 5. Do you know what happens when I press the number 12? Yep, I get 5. This is like a vending machine that only has Coca-Cola. Like, it doesn't matter what button you press, you're going to get a Coca-Cola. Do you know what's going to happen when you press a button? Yeah, you're going to get Coca-Cola, right? So this is a function because every input maps to exactly one output. Okay, last thing we're going to cover is the vertical line test. The vertical line test states that if a graph represents a function if every vertical line touches the graph at most once. Hey, when it says at most once, this means 1 is okay. 0 is okay. And that is it. So if you draw a vertical line and it touches exactly one time, and that happens, or at most 1 or 0 times, and that consistently happens throughout the entire graph, then this is going to be a function. If you can find one line that touches twice or more, then it's not a function. So let's take a look at graph number 1. I'm going to change the color just so you can really see, okay? I'm going to draw a vertical line. How many times did that red line touch the blue line? Just once, right here. Is that okay? Yes. Remember, it can touch 1 or 0 times. Let's draw another vertical line. How many times did it touch? Just once, right here. What about this one? Just once. What about this one? Just once. Can you picture a vertical line on this graph that's going to touch more than twice? I'm sorry, more than once? The answer is no, right? So every single vertical line only touches once. Then this is a function because it passes vertical line test. I'm just going to call it the VLT, the vertical line test. All right, let's try this again. Let's try graph number 2. Let's draw a vertical line. How many times is it touching? Just once on that blue dot right here. Next one. How many times is it touching? Just once. That's okay. What about here? Just once. That's okay. What about here? How many times is it touching? It's not touching it at all. But remember, we said at most once, which means 1 is okay and 0 is okay. So, because it's touching 0 times, it's still okay. Is this a function? The answer is still yes, because it passes the vertical line test. As soon as you can find a line that touches twice, now you're in trouble. If it touches 3 times, oh my god, big time trouble. Not going to work, okay? All right, let's see. This line, how many times does it touch? None. That is okay. This line, how many times does it touch? Whoop, I did not mean to do that. Let's try that again. This line, how many times does it touch? Just once. That is okay. It's only touching here. This line, how many times does it touch? It touches twice, and that is not okay. As soon as it touches twice, not okay, we're going to say no, it fails vertical line test. And that makes me sad. Okay, so number 3, graph number 3 is not a function. Graph 1 and 2 are functions so far. Let's take a look at graph number 4. Oh, graph number 4. I like graph number 4 because it is so tricky. Let's do the easy parts first. This part looks good to me, touches once. This part looks good to me, touches once. This part looks good to me, touches 0 times. And I know what you're thinking, Mr. Lechuga, why did you skip that one? I don't want you to skip that one. Can we do this one? Can we do this one? Okay, let's go ahead and do this one. This one. Oh my goodness. How many times is it touching there? I guarantee you some of you guys are thinking once. And I guarantee you some of you guys are thinking twice. So let me ask you this. Do you think it matters that one of these dots is filled and the other dot is empty? My answer is going to be yes, it does matter. On the top, because it's filled, it is touching. On the bottom, because it is empty, it is not touching. So when I ask you how many times is it touching on this line, well, it's touching up here, but it's not touching down there. So how many times is it touching? It is touching once. Is there any place where it's touching twice? The answer is no. So this means, hey, it only touches once or 0 times. This is a function because it passes the vertical line test. I know, that one was tricky. Okay. All right, last one. This part's okay. This part's okay. This part is not okay. So we're going to say, no, it fails vertical line test. All right, guys, so which ones are functions? Graph number 1, graph number 2, and graph number 4 are functions. Graph number 3 and number 5 are not functions because they fail the vertical line test. That's all we have for today. If you have any questions, as always, please feel free to ask.